podcast of West Tigers.
Well, hello and welcome to episode 17 of Behind the Roar, the official podcast of the West Tigers, where we give it to you straight, where we kick speculation into touch, and where we learn more about the people and the stories behind this great club. Now, this week's episode was actually recorded the day before we played the Gold Coast Titans last Thursday. And so much has happened arising from that game and elsewhere around the club that I thought we should touch on a few key issues. Our guest will be Dene Halatau, and I look forward to, and I'm sure you will enjoy our chat with him very shortly. But just arising out of that match on the Gold Coast, of course, we know that Api Koroisau had his jaw broken, so he'll be out for about 6 weeks. He's doing okay. Luke Brooks, hamstring injury, he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks as well. Again, Luke is doing okay. Just on that too, I wanted to give our club a rap. Forget the fact that I work for the club, but the way and how swiftly our medical staff leapt into action. After colliding with Tino Fa'asuamaleaui's elbow, Appy was going under the knife in Sydney. So this happened on the Gold Coast. 16 hours later, he was having surgery in Sydney. Likewise with Luke, about 16 hours after his injury, which happened on the Gold Coast, he was back in Sydney having scans. So, I mean, they are treated with the utmost care. And again, I think our medical staff deserve to be applauded on how they continue to work. The incident itself with Api Koroisau, it's going to be talked about for many, many weeks coming, I would have thought. It has sparked quite a bit of debate. There is no question that the contact with Tino's arm and Appy's jaw was direct and forceful contact with the head, but no charges were laid. When the shoe is on the other foot, or the boot's on the other foot, and a defender makes direct and forceful contact with an attacking player's head, well, there is always a price to pay. Anyway, he wasn't charged. We move on and we focus on Melbourne Storm on Saturday night. What those injuries and Stefano Utoikamano's selection for New South Wales Origin has done to the team sheet, plenty of changes against the Storm. But again, well done to Stefano. He's been in and around the Blues camp for a couple of years now. He's a wonderful fella, and I know you will join us here at the club in wishing him all the best on Wednesday night against Queensland at Suncorp Stadium. I'm sure he'll do a wonderful job up there. But in terms of team list Tuesday, lots and lots of changes. So Johnny Bateman has been handed the captaincy. It's something he's very proud of. Spoke to him during the week. He's really looking forward to that. He's not one of the bigger talkers, and when he talks, they can't really understand him anyway. But he leads by his actions. So he'll play at 13, normally on the right edge. So that's a bit different, the role that he'll play as well. For Nuapole, he will move up to Stefano's spot in the middle and starting up front. The other key changes, Brandon Wakeham comes in from 6 to 7. He'll handle that fine. Not a lot of difference between the 6 and the 7 these days when, your halves are split either side, but he'll be the directing half. And Stafford Toa comes in from the centres and will play second receiver or number 6. I reckon he'll handle it just fine. In fact, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Star goes. Okay, he's played a fair bit of fullback at this club and more recently in the centres, and he's been in great form. I think he would agree it's career best form. So looking forward to seeing how Star goes. The other big addition to the team list, and boy, what a story this is, Talon De Silva. He's another lovely young fella. Spoke with him during the week. He will make his NRL debut and become West Tigers player number 270. A Campbelltown junior, East Campbelltown Eagles he played for since he was just a little fella. And he has rocketed through our Pathways teams. Only this time last year, Talon was helping lift the cup, the Harold Matthews Cup, when Western Suburbs Magpies won the premiership for the very first time in the history of the Magpies club. Talon was part of that team. This year, he started out in SG ball, playing up in age. He then went to Jersey Flegg and then has spent the last couple of weeks playing New South Wales Cup. So it really is a dream pathway story, and it's all about what we're talking about when we say how much this club is investing in pathways. Look at Talon De Silva. Equally, look at the likes of Justin Matamua, who did the same thing last year, rocketing through the pathways teams. He is going to have lots of family and friends at Campbelltown Stadium on Saturday night. And I encourage the club just to give out as many free tickets to his family and friends as possible. Interesting yarn as well. He actually played in the same team as his father. I think it was last year at East Campbelltown Eagles. So it's a really nice story. And again, a lovely young kid. It's been timed perfectly, really, hasn't it? Because Saturday night, our club will celebrate Junior League Appreciation Round. So there you go. It couldn't have been timed any better. 36 clubs, in fact, we have feeding into our pathways when you take into consideration all the catchment areas from Balmain, the Macarthur area, Southern Highlands and beyond as well. Now, also, on Sunday, another big event. If you can get out to Lidcombe Oval, I encourage you to do so. I'm going to probably try and pop out there myself. Our New South Wales Cup team, the Magpies, they take on St George Illawarra Dragons. But more than that, it's the official opening of the Tommy Raudonikis stand. You might remember on this podcast we had Roy Masters sitting in this chair, that chair, one of these chairs earlier in the year. He was really looking forward to being there. And of course, as we know, Roy helped sprinkle Tommy's ashes on Lidcombe Oval. Now the stand is being named after the late, great Tommy Raudonikis and officially open. They're also playing for the very first Roy Masters Cup on Sunday afternoon. So, a pretty special occasion. Get out there if you can. And also, I hope to see you at Campbelltown Stadium on Saturday night for what should be an intriguing contest against another team that has been, affected by Origin representation in Melbourne Storm. All right, let's now dive into this week's podcast. This week's guest is one of our premiership heroes from 2005. He played with West Tigers for 10 seasons over 2 stints, punctuated by a 4-year period with Canterbury Bulldogs. After hanging up the boots at the end of the 2016 season, he has forged quite a successful career at NRL HQ in various roles, and he's also forging a career in the media. Worked for a number of years with the ABC Grandstand commentary team. He is very fondly remembered here at the West Tigers, and it is great to have him back at the club for this week's episode of Behind the Roar. Dene Halatau, thanks for joining us, mate.
Chris, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
You've been around this place before, so you've seen the Zurich Centre and quite a few familiar faces in the hallways.
Yeah, there is. It's great that the past players are celebrated on the walls, but it's a fantastic facility. I got a chance to come on the official opening of the venue, and I was really impressed. I actually got a private tour from Benji, so I hadn't seen him for a while.
Nice. Hey?
I think he was supposed to be on official duties, like showing other guests around, but I
come with me.
Yeah, I got him for a little bit of time and
guided tour with Benji.
Yeah, very fortunate,
mate. We've got so much to chat about. I really want to dig into what your role is at the NRL, your time at this club, and some really wonderful memories. You work in the media. And you've worked in various roles at the NRL, so lots for us to get through. And feel free to dish any dirt on any of your former teammates. That's fine. Very lighthearted show, this one. Before we dive into things, the season so far for West Tigers, obviously you follow us very closely in both of your roles.
Yep.
But also you're very attached to the club still, and you always, I guess, will be. Tough start, wasn't it, with all the changes made and the optimism leading into the season. What was it, 7 straight?
Yeah.
But it's turned.
It has turned, and tough start. The hard thing, like you said, the start of the year, every team comes into a season with, with the best intentions, big hopes. Everyone's always had the best off-season ever. They're always in great shape, and there's a lot of promise going into round one or trials and into round one. So no doubt it was a challenging period for the club, and a few of my former teammates, my old coach, all back together and looking for a new era as coaching staff. And I was feeling for them and for the team as well, not to be having some success early on. But you're right, it's turned around. And through that period as well, there was a number of performances where it was, it could have gone either way in those games, just unfortunately didn't get the results. So, if you watch closely, you know that there's something there. Yeah. But you have to turn it into a win at some point so you can start building confidence.
They sort of did, that sort of epic win out there at Bathurst. That was the turning point, I guess, in terms of wins. But it was interesting to see, and talking to all the guys there and the assistant coaches, and the stats were saying that we were playing pretty good football. Probably completions were a bit down. Yeah. We might have been playing a little bit too fancy for early in the season. But they didn't depart from what they were believing in, and and those good performances are still there.
Yeah, well, I bumped into. I was at the game at Belmore against the Bulldogs, and I bumped into Robbie and the guys, and Benji and Chris, and I was on the sideline chatting with Robbie, and one of the things he pointed out to me was how well the team was doing at getting down the field. One of the best yardage teams in the competition, right? And it's hard to sort of see that when the results aren't coming, or it's hard sort of externally for people to see that as a positive thing. They just go, no, well, you're not winning games, so what does it matter? You're throwing a stat at me that it's not really converting to results. But you're putting yourself in a position where you can play attacking football, and when you start getting that right, when you start executing your plays and you're down there more often than not, well, then the points are bound to come. And like with any change at a team, it's going to come at some point. You got to go through like a bit of a period of adjustment, and it looks as though at this current point in time, the things are starting to stick, and you've had some good performances, been able to unearth some young players as well that are getting some first grade experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our members and fans can probably they can say, well, we can go to any game, take on any opposition, and I think we're confident that we will be right in the mix, right in the contest. So let's hope we can knock off Melbourne this coming weekend. It's a bit tricky, isn't it? With most clubs missing Origin stars. Yep. But that's the way it is. You just got to deal with it. Next man up.
Yeah, and most of those clubs like Melbourne and Brisbane and all those clubs that feature heavily with Origin players, they tend to have players that stand up and do a job and can fill a role. And we've known that about Melbourne for a long time.
Do you remember the baby Broncos? You probably would have played against them. That was at Campbelltown. Do you remember
they were a bit before me. That baby Broncos team that won at Campbelltown,
came down and there was you hardly recognised any of them.
Yeah, and Origin won. Brisbane won either side of Origin won, right? So they've shown that they've got capability either side of that. Melbourne, like I said, aren't too different in terms of one goes out, one comes in, and they tend to know their role. That's
it's another challenge, isn't it, for all clubs, how to deal with it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Mate, this is how this works. You'll hear the whistle, and we'll have an opening set of 6 questions, right?
Okay.
And we'll try and get to know you a bit better.
Yeah, sweet.
Most of our fans know you very, very well. I don't know you that well. We say each other around the traps over the years. We'll dig a bit deeper, and we'll learn more about your life and your time here at the club. We've got quite a few questions from the crowd that have been sent in. You're a popular fella. If you do want to send in questions for the crowd for any of our guests, though, on Behind the Roar, do it via Insta. Just DM us Insta. The handle there is West Tigers BTR. That's the best way for future guests and future episodes. After the questions from the crowd, with the clock's up there with about 5 to go, we'll throw your favourite 5.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll be out of here.
Yeah.
But great to have you. Great to have you on deck, mate. It really is. All right, well, let's launch into the opening set of 6 questions. There is the whistle. Yeah, there she goes. Now, Shane Hayne is the referee. It is your NRL debut. It's a Sunday afternoon at Leichhardt Oval. You're playing against Manly. You remember this, don't you?
Yeah.
Your coach is Tim Sheens. Alongside you on the bench is Robbie Farah, who is also making his NRL debut. So away we go. First question there, mate. So tell us that afternoon at Leichhardt.
Yeah.
How vividly do you remember it, and sort of the build up to that match?
I remember the build up on the day really well. I was nervous I think I stopped on the way to the game maybe 4 or 5 times to go to the bathroom.
How old you been?
I was 20 at the time. And Robbie, as you said, Robbie and I both were about to make our debuts. I only got the call up the day before. So they were about to do their captain's run on the Saturday morning.
And you were playing lower grade?
I was playing reserve grade at the time, and I'd trained a few sessions with the first grade squad. I didn't start the season in the top squad. I'd done a little bit in the preseason, and then I'd done some work with the team when I started stringing some decent games together in reserve grade. Sheensy gave me an opportunity to come up and do a few sessions at training, and then the Saturday morning it would have been like maybe an hour and a half before the captain's run. He rang me and asked me to come into training because there was an injury cloud over Chris Patterson, who was a front rower.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, why am I covering the front rower? I'm playing centres at the moment. But he just wanted me to come into training and be on standby. Anyway, Chris didn't get through the fitness test, and I ended up going onto the bench, replacing a front rower. So it was
shuffling around well. And from that day, you were born a utility.
Yeah, well, I guess that was the start of it, right? So that happened on the Saturday, and then it was probably too long for me to think about the game because I had a whole day to get nervous, and it was very abrupt getting asked to come into training and get ready for the game. But then I had a whole day to think about the game itself and the fact that I was going on the bench, didn't know what was going to happen with the time I got or where I was going to be playing. But go to the game, nervous as I said, and I got in touch with a bunch of friends and family, got tickets for them to come to the game. So it was all built up, really exciting, big moment. I sat on the bench for 76 odd minutes. warmed up so many times down the sideline, and it probably got to a point maybe 20 minutes into the second half where I'm starting to think, I might be embarrassed here because I've invited all my friends, my family, and
the grandstand,
and I'm not going to get on the field, and it's a bit of an anticlimax, that sort of thing. And so it was a little bit. It was the bitterness was overcoming the sweetness, right?
Did you give Sheensy a bit of a look, mate?
Oh, you know what you do.
The grandstands get me on.
And any player that's on the bench that's keen to get on the field will tell you this. You start looking up to the coach's box. You know where it is, and you start looking around and trying to show your keenness. So I was, definitely doing that. And eventually, the game was actually gone. So we got to a point, 3 or 4 minutes to go. Yeah. And Manly were, I think, too far ahead for us to really give it a shake. Right, and he put me on in the centres. So it was... It was brief. I got a good match payment. It was a debut match payment.
Yeah, it doesn't maybe play 1 minute or 80.
It's probably the best hourly rate I'll ever get in my life.
Absolutely, pro rata per minute.
Yeah, and I got to tackle Steve Menzies, which was I had a huge amount of respect for Steve as a Beaver as a player, and that was probably the highlight of my first game was getting to tackle Steve Menzies. So I took that away. 3 tackles. 3 or 4 minutes.
So let's say $1,000 it might have been, $333 a minute.
It was a bit more than that, actually, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
Well, Faf says, I spoke to him earlier today, actually, Robbie, out in the kitchen here at the Zurich Centre. He said something along the lines of he was filthy that day, but only I got more minutes than him.
Yeah, Robbie, what about Robbie gets on the field, right? So he's replacing, I think he was either coming on for Robbie Mears or Darren Senna. He was a hooker. And he comes straight on the field, and his first set of attack, him at dummy half, he goes for an early kick from dummy half.
Oh, did he?
I was thinking, hang on a minute, I'm pretty sure it was the first set. I'm thinking he's just come on the field and just that confidence.
Boom, boom, boom.
Just to go bang, put an early kick in from dummy half. And
that was the start of Robbie's career, very confident dummy half.
He was number 67, I was number 68. So that was my numbers of that first game.
Oh, there you go. Tell us a bit more about your background. So you moved from New Zealand to Australia when you were, 3 or 4?
4 years old, yeah.
With the family?
With the family, my dad came over for more work. He was shearing sheep back in New Zealand. We were living in a small town called Wyndham, which is down the South Island. I was born
What's
in
that region then?
I should know this, but I don't actually know the area. But I was born in Invercargill.
You're born in Invercargill,
and then lived in a little town called Wyndham, which is like a little country town.
Yeah.
Dad came over for work. We followed, and we landed in the hills area, like West Pennant Hills, like
where I grew up.
So the sort of northwest area, which was a random spot for Kiwis to land in that day. But I grew up around that area.
Well, you could have gone to Bondi, I suppose.
that was the typical place for Kiwis to end up back in the late 80s, early 90s. But followed Dad over for work, and so as you can tell by my Aussie accent, I still consider myself very much a Kiwi, and I've still got my New Zealand passport and that, but I've grown up here and have proud to call this my home as well.
Well, I'm also touching on it now. So that epic World Cup win in 08, I think you didn't. Did you play?
I didn't play the final.
Didn't play the final. Be a part of the whole tour and the squad, and that must have been a mind-blowing moment for you.
It was a great experience. So we had the centenary test was in the middle of the year. We played against the Aussies at the SCG. If you remember, the Greg Inglis back to Gaznia was a great try in the in goal.
Yeah.
The Aussies had the traditional. It was like a purpley blue striped jersey on. So we
purple and pink sort of, wasn't it?
And we played okay in the second half in that game, and Wayne Bennett had come on as our assistant coach to Stephen Kearney, and we finished the game thinking we did okay, but we lost the game. It was a test match. You don't want to lose a test match, and Wayne hit us square between the eyes about like you can't be satisfied with losing the game and coming close. And he goes, you guys need to step out of sight of the shadow of the Kangaroos. Like, they're your big brother, your little brother, and you're always in the shadow. Like, he made a point about us shaking hands and high-fiving them after the games, like obviously our club teammates or guys that we knew. And I think that kind of gave us a little bit of a spark to put our heads down and sort of, consider what he said and go into the World Cup with a bit more a bit not chip on our shoulders, but a bit more confidence in what we could set out to do, and it unfolded through that tournament.
More spring in your step, pump your chest out a bit.
Not so much.
Wayne.
Not so much just sort of like giving them too much respect, right? They were a great side, and you never take a Kangaroo side lightly. But the tournament itself was a great experience. Really good group of guys. We were in sync. We understood what Mooks or Stephen Kearney wanted from us as a playing group, and Wayne added his touch, which he does so well. He's, to anyone that spent time with Wayne as a player or as a co-worker would know that what you see publicly is very different to what you get behind the scenes. He's probably come out a bit more in the last few years, like in terms of showing him more of his personality. But he's a great fella, and he's obviously a very wise football brain, but he's also a good guy to spend time with.
I don't know Wayne very well. Haven't spent much time with him at all. Yep. But Stephen Kearney, I know very well. He actually, this is not about me, but it's me. We played under 21s together at West Magpies.
Yeah, he's at West. Yeah.
So I was his captain for his very first game, right? And then so I was captain of 21s or whatever it was. And then Warren Ryan was the first grade coach. I think Steve just played one game or half a game, went straight up.
Yeah.
Never saw him again.
Yeah.
I did, but not in my team, sadly.
Yeah,
Great fella.
I played against him a few times early in my career when he was at Melbourne. Well, maybe only once, but he was a handful.
How good was he?
Great skill.
Back row with that offload.
Yeah, like he was that really skillful ball playing, hard to handle, good footwork, like really good player. And
athletic, gangly.
Yeah. As a coach though, just a very approachable guy, very deliberate with his delivery on the instructions he gave us, and really good guy to be around.
Yeah, you've been coached by some good ones, that is for sure. We've gone off a bit off track here. We often do that. No, we often do it. It's just the way it goes. Maybe we should have a set of 12. Away from footy, Dean, I know footy's such a huge part of your life. If and when you get some downtime, what do you like to do?
Obviously spending time with the family is pretty important. I've got 3 kids, and they play a bit of sport. So I've got my oldest, she's 14, she's playing league tag on the weekends. My youngest, he's 5, playing under 6s footy on the weekends. So
who's the local club?
They play for Delar down in the Shire competition.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, so I get out and watch them on the weekends, and then my middle daughter, she does dance, and she's just flipping around the house all week. So
in between your day job, your bread and butter at the NRL, and your ABC calling games, a couple each weekend, you're also the bit of a taxi driver.
Yeah, get around. Well, the wife and I love to get to the kids' sport on the weekends. Just spending time with her and the kids it's good. It's pretty important. And then I like to get out for a game of golf when I can. Like I'm a keen golfer. Not great at it, but I do enjoy getting out.
Do you? Yeah. Well, the last bloke in that chair was Brett Camorley. He apparently hits them pretty good.
He's a very good golfer. Played with Noddy before, and he's actually good for, like, you know when you play golf with people that give you pointers and you're like, I don't need pointers from someone that doesn't hit the ball or hits the ball the same as me. Noddy's got like some really, really good pointers on how to hit a golf ball. Like he's very good. Like he's obviously a good coach, but on the golf course as well, he can give you little adjustments to help you out.
Find time to get out there. You talk about taking kids around to the junior footy and all that, and I've got 3 kids as well, so I spend a lot of time weekends coaching and junior footy. Our executive producer of Behind the Raw, Tommy Meredith, right?
Yeah.
He told me today, because I was telling him how good the sausage sizzle is at Mona Vale Raiders, where I coach, right? He said, I really want to have a kid one day, or at least go to my nephew's footy because I want a sausage sizzle.
Yeah.
Fancy having your motivation to have a child
based on what's at the barbecue on the
based
weekend.
on what's at the barbecue.
They
No, he's a unique human. Tommy.
I love they do the big combos now. You get sausages, bacon, and eggs and everything on it. Like,
well, I'm going off track here a bit. So where I'm at the Mona Vale Raiders, right? It's the Trebojevich's club. They all came through, right? So Johnny Trebojevic was his boy's dad, and he was on the barbecue for years.
Yeah,
at Mona Vale Raiders, years and years and years. And their mum was running the canteen, and Johnny's got this special technique. So what he does with it, and it's been passed on through the generations, right? He's handed the tongs over to the next dad's coming through. So he cuts the bacon up and he forms like a reservoir of bacon on
puts the egg in the middle.
And puts the egg, boom.
Yeah. I've seen that before.
It all moulds in together, bang, where's your bread? Bushka.
I'm pretty sure that the great Vince Mirando,
does the same.
Does the same. I haven't
Vince from here.
Yeah, I haven't had a barbecue from Vince in a while, but I'm pretty sure I've seen him do that.
He might have got that off Trebojevich's dad.
He may have.
They've compared notes somewhere.
Although Vince has been around a lot longer, so he has. He's created everything, Vince.
Yeah, I'm yet to get a bacon.
Did he actually build this joint? Because he was building everything when I was here.
Probably, yeah. It's hard to get anything free off Vince. Where are we up to?
Sorry, tangents again.
Last one, set of 6, whistles, hands in the air. Who would you say has had the greatest influence on your career?
Oh, look, the first is my parents. Like they, the support they gave me as a youngster, and obviously the taxi driving that every parent.
How many in your family? You got brothers, sisters?
Yeah, I've got an older brother, younger sister. Carting us around every weekend to sport. My brother and sister were both into sport as well. So they're the first influence on my career because they got me into rugby league and kept me going until the opportunity started coming for myself. But Sheensy is my first coach. Obviously, he was hugely important in developing me as a first grade rugby league player. I was never really a gun as a youngster. I didn't make many rep sides. I didn't make any rep sides, to be honest. And I got into the Parramatta system playing in the Harold Matthews competition, missed selection for SG Ball. That's what brought me over to the Tigers, got into the Tigers.
So you made mats with Para?
I made mats with
and
Para.
That was pretty much it?
Yeah. I was never a world beater, but once I started applying myself a bit more and I started showing something, and then I got into like the system here at the Tigers, I started to learn so much about what it was to actually be a first grader from Tim. Obviously coached a number of successful sides and premierships and players, and I learned a lot from him about what it meant to be a first grade rugby league player, and probably even before that, like my school coaches, like they were really really important. I had a junior league coach as well, Warren Reiki, his name is. I had him for 12 years.
At
in my
what
junior
club?
Career. Wentworthville and then Maryland. So the fundamentals were key with him, and respect as well. We used to start every training session by shaking each other's hand.
Good.
Walking along, look each other in the eye, shake each other's hand.
There's a lot more that goes into it. You can have all the talent in the world, but as Sheensy and your other coach probably pointed out, there's so much more that goes into making a professional footballer.
Yeah, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't channel that in the right ways, then it doesn't mean much.
No, some good lessons there for any youngsters too that may not be making the rep teams, but look what happened to Dino. Let's have a 7-tackle set, right?
We're going again.
The kick went in goal, went over the dead ball line. 7th, if you're stranded on a desert island, okay, and you have to have one player with you from the 2005 premiership winning team, who is it?
If you're on an island, you kind of want to be entertained, but you also want to survive.
Be fed too.
Yeah, you want to survive. So From a survival point of view, I could almost go Chris Heinton, but because Chris is very outdoorsy.
Yes.
He could almost swim off the island and find safety somewhere and bring someone back. He's an aquaman. He's an ocean man. Robinson Crusoe. It'd probably have to be.
Oh, I know.
Him.
You should have seen the get up he had on today, walking around the office.
Yeah,
he had some sort of beanie. I don't know what look he was going for. I know. He said, "Well," I said, "I couldn't pull that look off."
Yeah, he's got his own style, Chris.
I said it was more like he should have had a log fire and bottle of red wine, sort of, and
that's the vibe that he was giving
cabin.
off. Yeah,
he had that type of outfit on.
Yeah, okay.
Right, well, Heino
I'll stick with Heino.
What if it was an entertainer, if you want to be entertained?
Oh, entertainer, it'd have to be either Liam Fulton, Bryce Gibbs, or Daniel Fitzhenry. Like those names, three will keep me going. Like,
those names have
laughing.
come up a bit.
Yeah.
Scando, I think, said something similar about those characters. Righto, that is a set of 6.
Long set of 6.
You've set a new record.
Bryden's lawyers are the lawyers you know and trust. If you require legal representation, then why look anywhere else? Call Bryden's lawyers on 1800 848 848. Bryden's lawyers, we do support you in your time of need.
Let's dive into the some bigger issues, key issues, more about your time. Now, so much of your career, second row, centres, hooker, off the bench. Where would you say you thought you were best suited to?
It's hard, like, because I moved around so much. I don't think I got enough time in one position to probably. I enjoyed the back row the most. Like, I loved being on an edge. Like, when I first came into grade, I was playing centres. I wasn't a flashy centre. I wasn't the fastest centre. I think I got in because I ran good lines. That was what Sheensy liked in me at the time.
Tackle well, good lines.
Yeah, make my tackles, run good lines. And you kind of are tasked with that when you move into back row, right? You got to run.
Lawrence was similar too.
Yeah, Chris Lawrence was a remarkable hole runner, right? And he committed to his line running, and he was tough as nails. And you kind of, you translate what you do well. What I did well, at least in the centres, was just moved into a bit closer to the action as an edge running back rower. I was probably a bit undersized for that, but I still really enjoyed the back row. Spent a bit of time at lock forward, especially under Sheensy, and then obviously through that 2005 like late stretch in the finals, I was playing 13, but it was a different type of role that I was playing. I was backing up Robbie as a dummy half runner, I guess. It was just the way Sheensy structured our style of play in the finals that landed me there. So long answer. The short answer to my long response is back row.
Back row. 2005 grand final team. Half of that team's now working here in some capacity. Like Benji and Robbie and Heino and Pat and Chrissy. Like, I imagine you would love for this club to get back to those lofty heights.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I was so excited for all those guys when they got their roles. Firstly, it was Benji or Sheensy coming back, then getting the head coaching role, and Benji being appointed as his heir, and then Robbie coming on as an assistant. Then I heard about Heino getting the role as well. I knew Paddy had been around for a while. Paddy Richards is giving a bit of a hand with some specialist coaching. So seeing those guys back at the club is great just in itself, but knowing that they're in significant roles in the direction of the footy team, it's I'm really happy for them, and I'm happy that the club's got them in the positions they have, and I'm really hopeful that they're going to take the team to some success. And just the conversations I've had with Benji when we've caught up or when we've bumped into each other, like he's made to be a coach, I think. And one thing that I've always admired about Benji, anything that he does, he wants to become the best at it.
Yep.
Like I've told a story before about when we were teammates and we were going to do something fun on the side. We'd go like play 10-pin bowling. The first time I seen Benji bowl, he would have bowled 55, 60, something like that, right? Yeah. Within 3 weeks, he's bowling towards 200 because he probably went off and practiced by himself to get good at it.
He would have done.
He's a natural talent. Like anything he picks up, he figures out pretty quickly. And I think people have seen it when he's been on TV shows, and he was a duck to water as in the media. So I think he's going to do a really good job. And Robbie brings so much knowledge as a coach. Heino brings a lot of work ethic. Like he's a really good example for young people to follow in terms of his work ethic. So it's a great combination, and I've got no doubt they're going to do well.
You so you were here with 2 stints, right? You went to the Dogs for a few years there. I don't suppose you had too many disappointments in your career, but one of them would have been when you came back here. You had that injury, didn't you, in pre-season?
Yeah, I broke my ankle out at Kirkham Oval, actually. We had a trial match against Penrith.
Yeah,
and Kirkham Oval, went for a run near the line. I was playing hooker at the time, so I picked it up. We were only about 10 metres out from their line. I took a scoot, thought I was going to get close to scoring a try. And Sam McKendry, their front rower, great front rower, great fella. He tackled me from behind and just caught my ankle. I didn't exactly know how it happened, but I felt it. I felt his weight on my leg, and I went, "Oh, that didn't feel great." I rolled over, and my foot was turned out. I dislocated my ankle and snapped my fibula. And it's funny, we had Scando was running the water for us.
Yeah.
Shane Elford was running the water for Penrith.
Yeah.
And they've both come out, because I'm not on the ground, obviously, in a bit
They couldn't
pain.
look.
And I think Spud, Shane Elford, squirted with me a bit of water, having a bit of a laugh.
You're right.
And he goes, that doesn't look good, Dene.
No.
And, anyway, broken ankle. I was out for
You'll
about
need
4
more than a
months.
magic sponge to fix that. So you're out for quite some time. And then just rewind, when you're at the Dogs, the other probably, in terms of injury disappointments, they were on there marching towards that 2012 grand final, and you got injured late in the season.
Yeah, I got it I think it was round 20 or so. I tore my medial. The first of like 6 times I'd torn my medial, or maybe the second time I'd done it. But playing against Para, Homebush, got tackled, medial gone, and I was out for 6 weeks. So I got back the week of, or the week before the semi-finals, but I couldn't get back in the team. And I was disappointed, because I'd had before I got injured, I'd played near on 80 minutes every game on an edge, and I had a really, it was one of my most enjoyable seasons that I'd had. So I was disappointed that off the back of the injury, I wasn't in a position that I could get back into the team.
Play in the second grand final.
And playing another grand final. And to be fair, Desi had to pick the team that was doing the job, and the guys that were all there. A guy called Josh Jackson had come on that year. Dale Finucane
was there.
had debuted that year, but our bench had been really solid. So there was no one that I could really displace at that point. I was waiting on an injury, which you don't want for your teammates. So,
did you have any other major injuries through your career?
05, before the 05 season started, I'd torn my rotator cuff in my left shoulder.
Yeah.
But I managed to get through the season with it, and then I got surgery at the end of the year. Benji and I in surgery together, one after the other, on shoulders. So we rehabbed together and recovered together. That was about it. But I had, like I said, 6 or 7 tears in my right medial. I had surgery twice on it to fix it.
As I said, it's not about me, but I need surgery on this one. This cuff.
Rotator cuff?
She's gone, snapped.
Got to get it fixed, mate. It'll never be the same. But
I just can't throw a ball. I can't do anything. I can swim. That's all right.
Well, if you can swim with it, that's not too bad.
Hey, with injuries, so you've had a few roles at the NRL. You've worked in the welfare space for a while as well, right? How important do you think is that at NRL clubs and at the NRL as well, and how far have they progressed in recent years in the welfare space? Well, not welfare, well-being, I should say.
Yeah, so well-being, and they changed the term from welfare to well-being a while ago, just because the connotations around welfare is it's a negative sort of way to frame it. Well-being is much more positive. So good distinction. But yeah, it's come along in leaps and bounds. And there's a guy that's running the wellbeing program from the NRL at the moment, Paul Heptonstall, who worked at the Tigers back in the day. He actually employed me at the Tigers when I first finished school as a trainee. But he's been,
because you worked here post football in a couple of years in
I did, yeah,
leadership, cultural,
for about 9 months or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, the wellbeing space in its as a whole has grown significantly, probably in the last 15 to 20 years, due to guys like Paul and Matty Francis, a guy before him. These guys kind of kicked off the wellbeing drive, and there's staff at every club now that look after players for the whole self, not just what they do at training and on the field as football players, but for all parts of their life, family, relationships, their spirituality, their community. There's a whole range of things that make up us as human beings, and I think the programs that are in place now are awesome, as well as focusing on like becoming skilled away from rugby league. So looking at a dual career path, like what are you doing away from the game that is going to sustain you beyond your playing years, because football is such a short period of your life, and preparing while you're playing football for what comes next gives you a softer landing into life after sport. It's not an easy transition for a lot of people.
No, I was going to ask that, and we've got some wonderful people here, a growing wellbeing team too. Tomo leads it up, and we've got Fletty, names that people will recognise, Fletty Mateo, Tim Grant, Tim Grant's in there as well. What are some of so when you were nearing retirement, did you sort of have in your mind what you would like to do post-retirement? And sort of second part of that question is, a lot of players post-retirement, they do struggle to cope and readjust with a new life.
Yeah, look, I did have some planning around what was happening, what I wanted to do next. I'd laid a fair bit of the groundwork in working in the game, like staying in the game, and I did roll out into I did land in a role in wellbeing and education. So I was part-time at the NRL and part-time here at the Tigers. The leadership and culture role was one that was kind of developed for me. Justin was around when that happened, and it was kind of like for me to sort of craft into something, to work closely with the leadership group and the team on, and the team as a whole on developing the culture of the group. At the time, trying to learn how to be an employee post-playing it's a bit difficult in itself to do that. So I didn't quite get a good grasp of it when I was here, and it only lasted, as I said, about 8 or 9 months, and then I got an opportunity to work full-time at the NRL in wellbeing. So I moved into that. The transition out of playing is quite challenging, and then this goes for any sport, not just rugby league. Anyone that's dedicated their life to the pursuit of excellence in a sport, when the time comes to stop doing that, it's fairly abrupt. Like you're like, okay, I'm a rugby league player. I know what I'm doing every day. I turn up, I train.
Some really struggle, don't they?
Yeah, and a lot of the programming that the Wellbeing and Education team does is aimed about making that transition as smooth as possible. You're going to go through a period where you feel like you've lost something, like there's a grief period, and then there's a period where you're not quite sure, and then you start to work your way through like, well, what's the opportunity from here on in? You start to become a bit more positive about what's next. So some people stay in that grief sort of languishing period for a long time, and it becomes really hard. Some people can get through it quicker than others, but there's definitely that challenge for every athlete really that transitions out of this sport.
About, I don't know, 18, 20 months ago, you moved into a new role. So that was more review and operations. But even since then, you've now gone into another role. Just explain what you're doing now, in terms of the head injury assessments, etc. Yeah,
so I landed in the review and operations role, like I said, about 18 months ago. It was the end of the 21 season.
So what did that mean, review and operations? What was your daily?
So basically working in the elite football department at the NRL. So Graham Annesley heads up that department, working with the team there on the injury surveillance bunker. So most people are aware now, particularly in the last 2 seasons, because we have an independent doctor that makes decisions on removing players from field. I was tasked with looking after the operational logistical side of things there. So there's rostering on staff. There's a number of staff that work in that operation. They're based out at Everleigh at the Technology Park where our bunker is.
Near Redfern.
Yeah. So they're in a room next to the match officials, the match review committees there as well. They all work alongside each other in separate rooms, independently, but alongside each other in terms of physically. And our injury surveillance bunker has now a spotter, 2 operators, a reviewer, and an independent doctor. And they watch every game live, tag head incidents throughout the course of the game in the bunker, and then they review those incidents throughout the course of the match. And then people would be seeing now, like, the referee stopped the game.
It's a huge operation, this bunker, and so none of us really know what goes on. So you've just explained the injury surveillance side of the bunker, and that's what you're overseeing, if you like, now in your new role. Then you're also in the bunker, you've got your match officials. So they're looking at any foul play or incorrect decisions, and then also in the bunker is another room, which is your match review.
Yep. So they're all using Hawkeye technology, which has been around for a little while now, and people will be familiar with the term Hawkeye because of other sports. But each of those rooms is getting the broadcast feed of every camera angle that's available to the broadcasters, and it's in real time. Yeah, so it's so quick the speed with which they get that vision. It's all centralised, so it all goes back to the bunker, which is from a logistical point of view very easy. But yeah, all those operations are going on independently. Like I said, the match reviews, everyone knows what the match officials do because everyone criticises it every week.
Just on the criticism side of things, right? This is, I guess you got to have pretty thick skin and working in any official role, like who would be a referee. But they're human; they get it wrong from time to time. And what I have liked from Graham Annesley, your boss or former boss or colleague, still boss. When you do get things wrong, he puts his hand up. For example, the West Tigers, at Campbelltown against the Raiders, there was a mistake which I think they admitted they got wrong. Too little too late. It's not going to change the result. Rewind to Townsville last year. They admitted they got something wrong there. I guess, fans just want to see consistency, and if you do make a blue, own it. Yeah,
and that's one of the things. Graham's definitely not afraid to stand up and talk through issues that occur across rounds. That's why they started doing that briefing on a Monday, was to give an opportunity for the game to explain its position on something. And often, Graham is putting his hand up and saying we got that one wrong. And refereeing, like you said, it's not many people. People are very quick to sit back at home and make judgments on what they think's occurred on the field by the referee. The referees referees on field work extremely hard in terms of their preparation. The volume of information they have to process throughout the course of a game is ridiculous. And they see it as a craft, and they're very dedicated to that craft. And they don't get a lot of light from their role in terms of feedback from the public. It's mostly I get accused from I work on a show for the ABC called Can You Be More Pacific? Give it a plug. Work with Sarah Nangama on that, and Sarah calls me the
we had I think Stafford was on.
Yeah, Stafford jumped on the show a few weeks ago. He was awesome. But Sarah calls me the referees, boss of the referees union, because I'm always going to bat for the referees, because I know it's not an easy gig. I know they work extremely hard, and yes, you want consistency, and they aim for that. So I get frustration from external, but they're frustrated in themselves when they get something wrong.
Well, they're not trying to make mistakes. We all make mistakes, I guess.
Yeah, so the ultimate goal is consistency and, football that's fair and free-flowing and all that, and that's what they try to do.
One sort of criticism in the modern game, I think, and I'm taking it on board from various people, are the sort of stoppages that has sort of crept in recently, and even to Origin, but a lot of that is probably, some of that is head injury assessment stoppages as well, which we just have to do. But there's some of the reviews might be taking what seems an eternity, and you'd probably know too in the commentary role. Yeah, I bet some of your ABC commentators might say, "Well, hang on, we can see that's a knock on. Why are we looking at it 16 times and 16 angles?"
And look, again, I've got to walk a fine line here, because
I know it's a bit of a conflict,
but and I face this when I'm doing the commentary, but it's all in aim of getting it right. So what's clear sometimes straight away to a lot of people isn't obviously clear all the time to our match officials, and if they have to go over something, a bunch of times to get it right. So the trouble is, the trouble is it's taken the fatigue factor out of the game with so many stoppages, right? They do, and I know that the game itself, as in the NRL, wants the game to be as attractive as possible in terms of the way the game's played. We know when we watch the game, when ourselves as just punters and fans watching a game, we know that when we get a free-flowing, entertaining game of football, we finish. That was a great game of football. You feel it, right? You want, and that's what the aim is. I know from the NRL. So if there's ever any delays, and I'm towing the company line here, but it's in aim to get it's aimed to get it right. Yeah. You want to get decisions right, and I feel like in the injury surveillance space as well, we have to manage relationships with clubs in terms of we remove players from the field to play. We're always trying to be as accurate as possible.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all understand that with the head injury assessments, you take almost as much time as you need. It's probably the other stoppages I'm maybe talking about that.
Yeah.
With the HIAs, right? But it is such an important role that's come into the game now in the modern climate. Would you say that now clubs are really buying into it a lot more and almost, righto, whatever the independent doctor says, good as gold, we comply totally? Whereas maybe a couple of years ago, a few clubs or most clubs were like, well, hang on, we need him out there. Why are we suddenly taking him?
There's certainly a heightened awareness around concussion globally in collision sports. Like it's been headlined for a number of big sports in the world for a number of years. And I think as a game, we've done really well in terms of taking a conservative approach and managing it as best we can with the information we've got. And we're leaning on experts constantly to make sure we're doing the right thing. And clubs, you're right, probably maybe at times they're like, oh, how come a player has been identified as a potential head injury? But they understand why we're doing what we're doing, and there's an overwhelming amount of support from clubs. In that, like I said before, we want to make sure we're accurate with the decisions we make. We don't want to unnecessarily disadvantage a team by taking a player off that hasn't sustained a head injury, but player care from that team, from the injury surveillance team, is front of mind. And building relationships with the clubs and the club medical staff and making sure that we're all on the same page and what we're trying to achieve is really important.
Yeah, I think it's working well.
Yeah.
From an outside, not from an outsider. I may work in the media as well.
There's going to be ones that, that
some might raise their eyebrows if they didn't see it, but you saw it back in the bunker.
Our bunker might see things differently to others, but we're trusting medical professionals to make decisions and
go off, have your scan, and all good.
Yeah, and we're also trusting clubs have medical professionals working for them as well. So there's a shared responsibility in making sure that we look after players.
And I think the fans also now understand, and that's part of the game, right? Fair enough. HIA, we get it.
Yep.
Whereas you might have had a bit of an uproar before if a player was taken off. You played 249 NRL games over 14 seasons, so 10 seasons here for it, the Dogs, right? Do you ever look back and think, if only I'd played that extra one game, if only I'd sat that got the 250 up?
Yeah, so Scando always lasts because Scando finished on 249 as well.
Correct.
Right? But that last season, I had a suspension from the season prior. So last game of 2015, Dragons, I got 2 charges in one game. And I think at the time, Mark O'Neill was actually the heading up the match review team at the NRL. Yeah, Buckets was. So my old former teammate, not that I'm glad he's...
Scandal?
No, well, I'm glad that he did the right thing. He suspended me for 2 charges in a game. So you can't claim bias if I got off it. But anyway, I missed the first round.
Scando had a word?
Maybe Scando got into him and said suspend Dean, so he can't
surpass me.
Anyway, I got suspended for round 1, and then we missed out on making the finals by 1 match. It was the last game of the season. Leichhardt Oval, Canberra, they towed us up. If we beat Canberra, we go through to the semi-finals.
That was Benji came back. Not Benji, Robbie made the miraculous...
No, Robbie didn't play that game. That's a whole other story that we don't want to go into for Robbie's sake.
I was going to say, though, I had heard, is there any truth in the sort of yarn or the rumour that you pulled up stumps on 249 because you didn't want to surpass your good mate Scan?
No, I would have taken him down for sure. I didn't want that. I wanted the next week because we were playing semis if we go through. So
you can blame Buckets, who was working in the match review, for giving you that 2-match suspension.
I might have got injured round 1. Might have been. Who knows? Sliding doors.
Righto, Dino, let's take some questions from the crowd because I think we got quite a few of them there. We've got some questions coming.
Hey Dean, Troy here. Mate, probably the best night of my life, or one of the best nights of my life, besides the grand final in 2005, was the semi-final against St George, and I vividly remember seeing your great smile as you ran out in the field, and the atmosphere was electric, and you were just lapping it up. I just want to know what was going through your mind at that particular time when you ran out in the field. Gee, mate.
Good question.
From Troy. Yeah.
Well, you knew that maybe a big game was to come from you.
Yeah. Well, I did have a big smile on my face running out because the atmosphere, as soon as I come out of the tunnel, it was probably the best atmosphere I've experienced as a player. The sound was enormous. Apparently through the week, there wasn't many tickets available for Tigers fans, so we were outnumbered maybe 3-1 Dragons fans, but you definitely didn't feel that way when we ran out. It was a huge atmosphere. I felt really relaxed that game. Like in the sheds before the game, we were having some jokes with our staff.
Were you the nervous type of player? Did you suffer?
Yeah, no, I did get quite nervous before games, but that game was probably the most relaxed I'd been at a big game, I guess. The Swans had just won their GF that night, next door.
Right.
I think it was next door, from memory. Anyway, the Swans had just won. We were in the sheds, and that was actually going in the background, and we'd heard the news that they'd won.
So there'd be a fair bit of red and white floating around the joint?
Yeah, there was, and that maybe we didn't take that as an omen because we're playing against the Red V, but yeah, it was just a really relaxed approach to the game for myself. And then when we got out there, it was all systems go. And Benji scored that first try right off the scrum. We said, we're on here.
We're on.
Yeah.
Another one, and it's from Shay. What was it like scoring 2 tries against the Dragons in that 05 semi-final? Had you ever scored 2 tries? Did you ever score 2 tries in another game in your career?
Yeah, I did in my first game at Leichhardt. My second game at Leichhardt against the Sharks. I scored a double.
Okay, so this was your second double.
Yeah, I think I might have got another one somewhere. But I remember the first one because Terry Hill
you were the
put
hit
me over for my first double.
Terry?
Tezza. He was playing lock forward at the time. But yeah, the 2 tries, the first one did what Cheensy told me to do, quick play the ball, go for a run from dummy half. Benny Galea got me a quick play the ball, which he did on a couple of occasions, and he reminds me about that too, Benny. But yeah, off the back of Benny, managed to get over near the post. And then late in the second half, because Paddy Richards had the ankle injury, I'd moved out to centres or to wing. Like Shane Elford and I sort of were up next to each other, and I got one off the end of a backline shift that was pretty much unopposed. I just had to fall over the line.
Jack Melville is also in 2005 prelim final. A lot of these are about that match. Really memorable for you for many reasons. It's the best West Tigers game in history, Jack says. Tell us about that night. Well, we've just sort of covered that, Jack, but thanks for your question. Nicholas, he asked, what's your golf handicap and when are we playing Concord with Benji?
Oh, I'd love to play. I've only played at Concord once. I know Benji's.
You might know this, Nicholas. I'm not quite sure.
Benji's a member there.
With a French name.
Nicholas, if I do know you, send me a message on Instagram and tee up that hit with Benji because I'd love to have a game at Concord. But my handicap at the moment would probably be, I think it's 17 point something, but I can't play to it. I'm tipping over 20 most of the time.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. So you're almost a hacker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Memphis Anderson asks you, who was your biggest rivalry with? Any other player did you have a bit of a run-in with?
I don't think I had a rivalry with a player in particular. Probably teams that like, when I was playing that I just really struggled with were Manly. Funnily enough, I debuted against them, but I just always struggled, even when I was at the Dogs, struggled with games against Manly. I don't know why. Yeah. They're just an opponent that I just personally struggled. Like I played poorly against them and we tended to lose to them as well.
It's probably in the head too.
Yeah.
Righto, yeah. And you often have bogey teams.
Yeah.
Clubs do have bogey, or even grounds they go to, and they've had a poor record there for so many years.
Yeah.
And as much as you try and say, let's not even mention that, it's
in the back of the mind.
It's in the back of the mind. Zach Doran, what are some similarities, Dean, do you think, between 2005 and this season, 2023?
2005, we were no-hopers in the mid part of the year, as in like no one backed us to do anything with the season, and we ended up doing what we did. We went on a run of 8 games, I think it was, and made the finals and the rest of it. The young guys that are playing now that have sort of come through the lower grades is, and I know this was said by Sheensy in the preseason or even late last year, that there's a group of young kids coming through our pathway systems here at the Tigers that reminded him of that group. So probably that the youth coming through, and that, you know, it took us a little while to get going, but once we did, we clicked into what we knew we wanted to do.
Absolutely. Well, there's a similarity in itself. And Jerome has been going great. Junior Tupou's come on in leaps and bounds.
They're both unreal to watch.
Safatoa's playing, I think, some of his best footy. Into Apollo, he's going good too. So there you go. Thank you for all those questions. One final one. This is from Keegan. He says, Dean, you're a legend.
Thanks, Keegan.
Yeah. Give us a Mad Monday story if it's PG. Save that one.
Yeah.
So
it's been so long since Mad Mondays. So
I don't know if they still have Mad Mondays. I think they've been outlawed. Everything's
they've been scaled down,
tamed down a bit.
They've been risk managed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good way to put it. Yeah. Risk managed. I like it. So thanks for everyone sending those. Again, do it via Insta, West Tigers BTR. Don't forget also, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit the bell icon and subscribe, and then you'll get notifications so you'll never miss a Behind the Roar. That try in the 05 Grand Final, you remember the one, Paddy Richards' try with the Benji flick. So what we're going to do, right, we might play Rabs's commentary of it.
Yeah, sweet.
But I want our listeners and our fans and subscribers to Behind the Roar, members, I want to get some direct messages coming. I want some phantom calls of that grand final. So what we'll do, I'm going to put the words the commentator Rabs used. I'll put it on Instagram, and you can have your go trying to replicate the call. And then later in the season, plan is, whether it comes off, I don't know. Plan is to get Rabs in here.
Yeah.
And he can judge the winner.
Judge the winner. Yeah, I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. We might even get Paddy Richards. We might even get Benji to have a crack at it himself. Should we just reminisce that?
Yeah, go for it.
Hudson taken by Norton. He took him late. Marshall skips away. Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Jensen away. Pat Richards.
It's got goosebumps.
A magnificent try. Length of the field stuff. Oh, that is one of the great grand final tries.
Rabs and Fatty. Oh, you could listen. This never gets stale.
Yeah, that was. I literally just got goosebumps then, and I've only really watched the grand final back maybe once or twice in its entirety, and not even. I don't know why. I just never really watched it back. I just kind of lived in the moment in my mind, and but I've seen that so many times, and every time I still get the same.
You still do.
Same sensation. Awesome stuff.
Yeah. So check out, look on Insta, because we're going to get this competition. If you call it, send us a DM, record your own voice, calling those same words. That Pat Richards try.
Bryden's lawyers are the lawyers you know and trust. If you require legal representation, then why look anywhere else? Call Bryden's lawyers on 1800 848 848. Bryden's lawyers, we do support you in your time of need.
Righto. There's a clock, brother. You're almost out of here. 5 minutes to go.
5 to go.
5 to go. As a kid, your favourite player growing up?
I had a couple. So Gary Freeman I loved when he was at the Tigers because he was a Kiwi and he was a little bit of a rat bag. I wasn't a rat bag myself, but he just was
he was.
He was a competitor. He was pretty dogged, and so I loved him for that reason. And then sort of a bit later on, it was Laurie Daly. I loved him as his skill, but he was very tough defensively.
Yep.
For a six,
if he played the six,
he could hit, and he had such a high work rate defensively as well.
He did. He did. Your best career moment?
Well, obviously the grand final is hard to surpass, and so that's
let's say other than that
sits up the top. But representing New Zealand for the first time, and I was in the 2004 Tri Nations tour and played against England in the north of England, and my parents got flown over by the Tigers actually. Shout out to.
So what year was that?
2004.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, okay.
I was there. I'm sure I was there working with Sky Sports.
Oh, right, there you go. So I got to play against England. My parents are there watching. They literally got to the ground from coming over from Australia, from travelling from Australia. They got to the ground 10 minutes before kickoff and seen them standing there just in the next to the players' enclosure. So that was probably a highlight.
How good.
Of that. Yeah, pretty awesome.
Okay, a former teammate who you would not like to be stuck in a lift with?
Any of the three pests that I
same three you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Fitzy, Gibbsy, or Liam Fulton. I know Gibbsy's got some interesting chat sometimes. Though, so like
he might pass the time away with some interesting chat.
Yeah, I reckon Fitzy would just get really like he'd love just to annoy the crap out of you.
Okay, your favourite home cooked meal? Are you a bit of a chef or not?
I'm not a chef at all. I struggle. I can follow instructions, but I'm not a patient chef.
No.
My wife's a very good cook. Anything she cooks, I'm happy with. Anything she cooks. She cooked a good roast for me last night, actually, for our family, I should say.
Well, here's one for you on the roast front. Tell your wife, Lukey Brooks, he's tipped me into a tip with how to get the best roast potatoes.
Best roasties? What is it? You got to just get a secret. You don't want to let anyone know.
You put them in the fridge first,
right?
After you've peeled them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've
boil
never
them,
heard that.
peel them, parboil them, put them in the fridge for an hour or two. I left mine overnight, then straight into the hot oil.
Okay.
Boom.
I'll put that on the.
He learnt that on TikTok.
Okay. There's so many things you learn from social media.
Yeah.
I'm not across TikTok.
Brooksy's quite the chef. He's
Yeah.
quite the chef. Yeah.
I didn't pick Brooksy for someone to be on TikTok, actually, but anyway.
No, well, all his cooking stuff, he goes to TikTok for advice. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
Invite me around, Brooksy, for a feed.
Yeah. Righto. We've done that. Right. A favourite movie, book and song. Movie, book, song.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Movie, like when I was a kid, Lion King, hands down.
Oh, righto.
Yeah, Lion King was at the top. So I'll take my childhood movie and bring it forward. That's
Fine.
my all-time.
Lion King's in.
Are
you a reader?
I'm a casual reader. I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
But I probably don't have one that stands out as a favourite, I'd say. Song?
You're a bit of a muso, they tell me.
No, I'm a hack muso. If I'm a 20 handicapper golfer, I'm probably a 36 handicapper muso.
Well, I've been told if we had a little log fire here and a guitar, you'd be first to be.
Nah, Benji's a man for that. Benji's.
I haven't. I've never.
Benji's great on the guitar. Plays the piano as well.
Is he?
Yeah, loves a sing along.
True.
We've had a few nights back.
Do you know that?
But song, I don't know, anything laid back is good. I like at the moment, I'm hooked on like 660 and LAB, which a lot of people are. Like they've been around for a while, but anything that they release, I hook on to 660.
I reckon we need to have a fire pit here at the Zurich Centre installed.
Yeah, and just have some
hear me?
kumbaya. Yeah,
some kumbaya. Benji,
yeah.
You,
Hino's got some ability on something. I'm sure.
Has he?
Yeah. Robbie doesn't mind a sing along.
Does he?
Robbie loves a sing along. Yeah.
Could be onto something here. I think we could be onto it.
Yeah.
Mate, thanks for coming in. It's been great having a chat to you.
Oh, well, good. Thanks for having me.
All the best to our boys, hopefully against Melbourne Storm at Campbelltown Sports Stadium on Saturday night. I guess both teams will be.
What time's kick-off again?
7:30.
7:30. Will be cold. Get out there, rug up, and
you
get
might
out
be
there.
out there calling.
I think I am. Yes.
Thanks again for coming in, mate. Appreciate it. Great chatting to you. And hopefully good luck to the boys against Melbourne Storm at Campbelltown Sports Stadium this coming weekend. Until next week, we'll do it all again next week. Same time, same place. You know the deal. Show your stripes.
Behind the Law, the official podcast of West Tigers.